Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Cory Arbuckle. What's up, man?
Oh man, just living life, man. It's been this last year since I got out has been some of the hardest, darkest times of my life. Like I walked into Washington State Penitentiary at barely the age of 18, and compared to what I've been doing this last year, that's nothing.
Yeah, it's kind of
Like,
like a vacation. You don't really have responsibilities in there.
yeah.
It's a lot easier in prison, do you think?
And in some ways it is. You don't have to worry about food. You got a hot and a cot. You got all your basic needs taken care of, and you really don't have to do anything for them.
Yeah.
Out here, it's a lot different. I've been learning that word that I don't really like, and it's called adulting.
Yeah.
And just personal life situations really got really crazy, and it's just been a nightmare. But I've stayed to it. I've kept my nose on the grindstone. Jobs, I've bounced around from a lot of jobs for one reason to another. I had thought I had a good job at one point, working for a metal fabrication company. They were training me to weld, and then they laid me off. And after that, it was just like it's just one nightmare after another. But I had an interview with Napa Auto Store here in town for a stockroom position, and they really liked me because I really sold myself good, and it looks like they're going to be hiring me, so that's going to really set me up because it can be somewhere that I can get comfortable at.
Yeah. So where were you born and raised?
So I was born in El Cajon, California, but like at 4 or 5 years old, my mom and dad moved to Staten Island, New York, and they were why I don't know. I think it's my dad was from that area, but they were caretakers on a Jewish campground in Staten Island, so we lived there until I was like 6 or so. My dad killed himself when I was 5.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was the relationship between him and my mom. From what I understand, wasn't the best. Supposedly, he was cheating on another wife with my mom. And I remember one night he had left and never came back. And the next day, the dogs were all acting weird. So I followed the dogs, and they led me to his truck. And he had killed himself through carbon monoxide poisoning. And that was kind of like where my life really just took a real big turn, was at that stage. Because you finding your parent dead at that young of an age. I didn't even really realize what was going on. I knew that something was bad was going on, but didn't really know. And my mom immediately had met a trucker, and we drove all the way across the country, and that's how we got here in Washington. So I've pretty much been in Washington, Eastern Washington, all my life. Spokane, Washington, which is pretty close to the Canadian border.
What was your early life like in Washington?
So I got pretty much taken from my mom and put into the foster care system. And the foster care system at that time, that's when a lot of bad shit was happening. And I was in one of the, a Catholic boys' home, Morningstar Boys Ranch here in Spokane, and it was a disaster. There was all kinds of shit going on there. And I just kind of bounced around from foster home to foster home. I'd run away, live on the streets, because, running away and living on the streets was safer for me than being in a lot of those foster care systems, because there was a lot of abuse, there was a lot of neglect, a lot of people were, in it for the wrong reason, and so I always just ran away. And I think the first time I ran away, I was like 12 years old, 13 years old, and I just met some people on the streets, and they laced me up and brought me up and taught me the ways of living on the streets, and that's kind of from there on, it's just kind of what I did, was just the streets was my home. That's what I knew. It was, I had, Mohawk, the big old smiley, gutter punk life, at the young age, and was just living that life. And for me, it was freedom. It was, because the people that I was around, they had my back. They took care of me. We took care of each other. And, that was pretty much what my life was. And then there was a certain point I was like, I think I was like 15, 16 years old. And I pretty much annihilated all the foster care systems. And any foster home I would go into, I would destroy it. Like, the people would not want me there. They would kick me out. And finally,
Cause
CPS,
havoc, right? Cause havoc in there.
Fucking crazy havoc, man. And so much havoc that the CPS just like said, "Here, go back to your mom." And I love my mom. She is one of the strongest people, but she's had her issues, and it was really difficult. She couldn't raise me. She couldn't take care of me. And I don't hold that against her, because I couldn't take care of myself,
Yeah.
And it was funny. They gave my mom custody, and I was like 15 years old. So what's the first thing that my mom decides to do with me? She fucking was in a relationship with the carny, and we bounced out with Candy Apple Amusement Carnival. So we just traveled all over the place as a carny. So
it seems like a fun life when you're a kid, though, right?
Hey, I enjoyed it, man. Like, I was living the juggalo life before the juggalo life was even a thing, Like, all these new juggalos, like, they don't really know what the fuck is really going on and what that whole dark carnival and the concept behind that is. And I traveled around with Candy Apple Amusements with my mom, and I worked too. Got paid dollar bills, that's what they always paid us in, was dollar bills, and just traveled all over the place. And I had a blast. I mean, I was hitting tail all the way from Washington to Idaho to Montana, meeting cool people. And then my mom, we were in Powell, Wyoming, and my mom and her boyfriend, the carny dude, broke up, and he dipped out. So then she left, and she's like, "Well, are you coming back with me?" I said, "No, I'm going to stay here with the carnival. And I'm going to fucking keep traveling with these fuckers. They're going to let me go. I'm going to do it." Well, yeah. I ended up not traveling with him. I ended up getting caught up and staying in Powell, Wyoming, and just hanging around there and doing a bunch of shit. And then I decided, I was like, fuck, I got to get back to Spokane. So I hitchhiked all the way from Powell, Wyoming, back to Spokane, Washington, all the way through Wyoming, Montana, and right into Washington, Idaho, and Washington, barely 16 years old, just loving life. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong.
How long that take you?
Fuck, that was probably 4 or 5 days.
Just winging it?
Yeah,
winging it as you go?
Yeah, just winging it, man, just thumbing it. I could have probably done it faster, but, there's some places I stopped and checked out and whatnot. And let me tell you, there were some very questionable people that picked me up. Like, there was one guy who picked me up, and we're like going out of Montana into Idaho, and he had just seemed to be acting kind of off. And he was like, "Hey, man, I don't know if you're willing to do something for me, but I have all this stuff, all this money. I will sign it all over to you right now if you take me out." And I was like, "What? What do you mean, take you out where?" He's like, "I want to, and I can't." I'm like, "What? You want me to kill you?" I was like, can we stop at the gas station there? And he's like, "Yeah." So we stopped in the gas station. I went in the gas station. I was like, "Hey, that dude's a weirdo out there, man. And I don't know, he's some crazy shit." So I went into the bathroom and dipped out the fucking back window and went in the woods and just stayed there posted until I saw him drive out. I was like, this fucking dude's crazy. But
that's insane.
Yeah, but that was, that timeline was really when my life started really taking a dark turn. Just from years of just abuse from the system, abuse from the world, people that I was supposed to look to for protection just abused the hell out of me and neglected me. And, I got back to, where my mom was at in Colville, stayed around there for a little while, and that wasn't doing it. So I dipped back to Spokane and was just back on the streets, living that street life. And it was that turning point. I was 17. This was a few years after the carnival. I was 17 and living on the streets, you know, really heavily in the game. Like I really put myself into a position and was involved with a lot of big heavy hitters in Spokane. And I was at a young age, and all these people liked what I did and how I did it because nobody was looking for the kid doing everything, you know. And I was going harder and bigger than any of them other dudes were, and I just got caught up in that lifestyle, and something happened in my mind to where I was like, I just want to kill everybody. I want to destroy this world.
You were angry.
Yeah, super angry. And so me and a friend, we decided to, do something. Well, he was just kind of with me. I had done some investigation and found out where a certain staff member that had done some stuff to me, what he was doing now. And he was a cab driver. And, so I did this big old story to have him come pick me up, said his name, said I feel comfortable with him. I got all these social anxiety issues and I feel comfortable with this guy picking me up. And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. We'll send him to you. And sure as shit, they sent it to me. And my partner didn't really know what I was going to do. I mean, in his mind, he thought we were just going to rob this guy. But no, it was way more than just rob this guy. And he picked us up and we told him where he wanted to go. And we're like, oh yeah, when we get there, it's going to be, our friends will pay you and all that. And we kind of drove him all around. And he was like, finally he stopped and says, look, I think something's going on. And that's where my mind just snapped. And I took a pruning saw and wrapped around him and just tried to get his head off. And
pruning saw?
Yeah, I was living on the streets. So I had to have, and that's what I had, was a pruning saw. Luckily, he didn't get hurt as bad as he could have gotten hurt. I mean, he did get hurt, obviously, but not as bad. And started doing that, and he started flailing. The car started rolling down. I dipped out the door, and then my partner dipped out the door. I ran down to the river, ran in the river, and ran all the way up the river. And, that way if they had dogs or something, they're not going to be able to track us running in the river. Popped up on the freeway, started hitchhiking. Not even 2 hours after I tried taking this guy's head off, hitchhiking, and who stops and picks us up? A cop. I was like, the cop stopped, and I was like, oh, fuck. He's like, you guys want to ride up here to the truck stop? We're like, yeah. So this cop opened his door, and he got in there, and he gave us a ride right up to the truck stop.
Did you still have the pruning saw?
Oh, no. No, that was long gone. Oh, yeah, that was long gone, yeah. But I'm just sitting there like, all right. I mean, what better of a way to hide out is than hiding out with a cop, And he dropped us off. He even gave us $20 to buy some food. I was like, I don't even know what just happened. I wonder if he ever figured that out. He had to get the shit on. But, so we dipped out and hitchhiked all the way to Portland, Oregon. I had been in Portland, Oregon in the past and had some contacts there. So, I was going to those contacts and going to just, get out of there, because I was really big in, I don't know, do you know what sharps are?
No.
So sharps are skinheads against racial prejudice. They're anti-skinheads. So when the skinhead movement started and they started coming in and pushing around all the punks and, the ones that call them skinhead, they call them skins because they just shaved their heads and they're dark workers and punks. They came in there, the Nazi movement came in and started bullying all these people around. Well, other people came up with an opposite of them. I mean, they look the same, they're dressed the same, but they're called sharps. And I had a lot of dealings with them, so that's why I went to Portland, because they were really big there.
And where does it go from there?
Well, so, I committed my felony, And then we hitchhiked all the way to Portland, Oregon, because I had some contacts in Portland that, I was going to go do some stuff for, and they were going to look out for us. And we got to Portland, and it really didn't work out the way that it was planned to work out. When I got there, it was kind of like the group that I was going to was right in the middle of some big time battles. And of course, I'm like, I just did what I did, so I'm ready to go to war. Like, who cares? And my co-defendant, my partner at that point, he was like, he just bounced out because he was like, no, I can't keep riding with you. Like, you're going, no. And
I
I
ain't
was like,
signing up for this shit.
yeah, I was like, yeah, that's fine. You can move. I don't care. Let's do what you got to do. So I just got myself with my dudes, and they were battling some people, and I just went to war with them and hung out in Portland for a while. And there was a place downtown Portland called Paranoia Park, and we just got back from a really big situation that was insane. Like, when I think about it, how insane it was, it's like, did I just watch a movie when I was and think that I was involved with that? Because there's no fucking way. But it was all real. Like, it was like the shit that you see on movies, there was this park, and it was kind of just an abandoned area, but it was also a park at one time. And then it just kind of got taken over by, street kids and all that. And we had our group, which was about 20 or 30 of us, with just all kinds of weapons. And then they had their group, and they had maybe 20 or 30 more than we had. So we were definitely outnumbered. And we were in this big old park, and it was like they were on one side, we were on the other side, and our two shot callers, I guess you can call them, went out there and started talking, and then it just started, and went to town, and it was pretty crazy. And after probably about 5 minutes of this battle, this just epic battle that just goes down, and like, I wish somebody would have recorded it and watched, because it would go down in history. It was insane. It was like,
No guns, right?
Oh, it was everything. Yeah. Like, because I'm real big into the, I'm a heathen, I'm a Asatru, so into the Viking culture and whatnot. So, I can kind of think of it as like, how when the Vikings went in on the, invading them and stuff and just going to war, is like, it was crazy. Like, it was as crazy as it was. And this kind of says a little bit how fucked up I was. I enjoyed it. I mean, I was bloody. I was fucking just, I was a mess. Fuck, nose over here, fucking lip over here, ribs dislocated. Like, I mean, it was a nasty fucking thing. But I enjoyed it. That's what I signed up for. And so I just stayed in Portland and hung around there for a while. And actually, it's funny. This is what I remember. Where I remember the time. So I remember I was downtown, and they had all the cops coming downtown and clearing out downtown because Bill Clinton was coming to town. And it's because of that I got caught, because when they came down and were moving people out of the park and we had stayed, they ran all our names. And I had just had my name ran through some cop that was like basically trying to hit up on one of these girls that I was hanging around with. And we're like, well, then you got to give us some information. And he ran my name and said, no, there's nothing on it. 24 hours later, I'm like, cool. It's not going to come up in 24 hours later. Nope. They ran my name, and immediately they pulled their guns out and started screaming at me, get on the ground, get on the ground. And I'm like, what do you want me to get on the ground for? And then one dude two cops tased me, and a whole load of other, I don't even know where these cops came from. They're just coming out of the ground, jumped on me, and were like, oh, he's wanted for murder and all this shit in Washington. I was like, oh, the dude died? Oh, well, I guess that's going down. Well, he ended up not dying.
Oh,
He didn't die.
It was
No,
like
there was just
yeah, it was like a crazy assault charge, though, right?
yeah. Well, it was attempted murder, but there was some weird something happened in the warrant to where it put, because they originally had first degree attempted murder, but first they put first degree murder, so they thought it was under arrest. But within days it changed, so they arrest me. You know, it's a minor. They put me in, you know, Portland, Oregon juvenile. Which is funny because the cell they put me in the juvenile was the exact same cell that I was in a couple years prior when I was in Portland the first time and got caught for shoplifting. I was like, what the? My name was still blasted on the wall and everything. I was like, oh, this is funny.
Little different circumstances.
Yeah, a lot different. So they had me there for a few days, and then they came in one day and said, hey, pack your stuff, you're leaving. I was like, where am I going? They said, you're going to Mahoma County detention, to jail, county jail. I was like, why am I going to county jail? I'm a minor. They're like, Washington declined you. You're now being charged as an adult. It's like, oh, all right. So they could take me to fucking downtown Portland, Oregon, and put me in the county jail and throw me in the, you know, one of the units. And then I get an attorney, and he's like, oh, are you going to fight, you know, we'll fight jurisdiction and all that because they, you know, declined on you and they shouldn't have did it and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, whatever. So we were fighting, and there's a certain amount of time that they had to come pick you up. And it was the middle of winter. Here it is on the, you know, the end of the timeline that they had to come pick me up. You know, they're like, Washington, we're not going to take you to Washington. You know, they're not going to do that. It was just some weird situation. And I was like, there's no fucking way I'm going to get lucky and walk out of here. And they're like, we've contacted Spokane County and we haven't gotten nothing back. We don't know what to do. And my attorney's like, well, I mean, then you have to let them out. If they're not contacting you guys and saying you want them to be held for an extended amount of time, you can't hold him. So they're getting ready to get me out. And then these show up right at the last minute. I was so pissed. So pissed. I was like so close. So they transferred me and some other kid. This kid that they transferred me with was you know, one of those diddlers. Because one of the guards, I heard him overhear him saying, yeah, he's in there for, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I got to sit next to one of these dudes. And he kept wanting to talk to me. I was like, look, man, I'm not trying to talk to you, man. You're a fucking weirdo. Like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. Like, I am not the dude that you want to keep pushing right now because I don't care. And he kept trying to talk to me, man. And I'm like, this fucking dude's an idiot. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, I'm going to get this dude. And they stop at a place so we can go use the bathroom. And they're like, all right, you guys both go in the bathroom. And they didn't have shackles on our legs. We just had the cuffs on our arms. And we go in there, and he's sitting there at the urinal pissing, singing Frankie Doodle Dandy, taking his time. And I'm like, dude, hurry up, man. I got to piss. And he looks around at me and blows a kiss. No, not going for it. I immediately run over, wrap my arms, you know, with the cuffs behind him, pull him down, and wrap my legs around and fall down on the ground. He's got his in his hand, pissing everywhere. I'm trying to choke this dude out. And he's screaming and yelling, and I'm just choking this dude out. Yeah, sing it now, motherfucker. It's just going off. I mean, at that point, I was fucking gone. I didn't care about nothing. And the two cops come running in the door, and they stop, and they're like, you know, because dude's just flying everywhere, and here I am on top of him, and dude's screaming and crying. So they, you know, finally come over and, you know, pull us apart and all that, and they try to figure out what they're going to do and call support and all that kind of shit and try to figure out what they're trying to do. And, you know, like if I would have been able, if I would have put I should have put something by the door to block it, because if I would have had that extra 2 or 3 seconds, it probably would have been done. But that was, you know, so they take us to Spokane. And what was weird was right when we got to Spokane, they put me in the juvenile. And I was like, so why am I going to the juvenile here but not there. And I was a juvenile for a couple days, and then finally they transferred me over to the county jail. And Spokane County was a lot different than Portland. Portland, they just put me right in the main line. They didn't even care.
Are you a
Spokane, they
small
put.
kid? Are you a small kid? Like what? How
Was
big
I
are
a
you?
small kid?
Yeah.
Nah. I mean, I was normal size. I mean, I wasn't. I was a little langly, a little skinny. But I was just. I have what they call ding strength. You ever heard the ding strength? Like the ding strength's a real thing. Like that's a real fucking thing. Like let me tell you right now, that's just gotten me out of some really big situations of just because my mind when it gets to that point and turns over, like I literally become the true definition of amoral and don't care and will do anything and everything. That's how I was at that time. I had that monster inside and I knew how to use it well. And so I use that to my advantage. And, I've sent some very big dudes down. And I've been put down by big dudes too, but, I've never really been a big dude. I'm not, I'm barely, like, I'm almost 6 foot, like 225, but,
Yeah.
I've got that reserve of that ding strength. And so they put me in the county jail and they put me in the fucking hole where, because I was a minor. So, they give me, I get an attorney and all that. And he's like, they're going to want to make, a plea bargain with you. You plead guilty to second degree attempted murder. They'll give you an alpha plea and 131 months. I was like, all right, whatever. I'll take that. That's a good deal. The alpha plea is what I really wanted because that was talking about basically, there was other stuff, but they wanted me for this. So they made a deal saying that they wouldn't come after me for all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, cool. And I'll plead guilty to that. Second degree attempted murder, 10 years, 11 months. Sure. It's not a bad deal. 17 years old. I'll still be good. That's how my mind works. And so I get to Shelton, which is the receiving prison in Washington State where everybody goes when they get to the system, and then they classify them and then they send them off to whatever main prison that they're going to. So I get there April 17th, 1997, the day before my 18th birthday. And when I get there, they put me where they put the juveniles at for YOP. And basically it's the minors go here and they do this program, get their GED, do some counseling for 3 or 4 months. And then as long as they accomplish everything, they let us pick when we become 18, what medium facility we want to go to. And that was a good deal because I had a violent charge and I was going to have to do mandatory 5 years in closed custody. So they said, well, technically you got here when you're 17, so you qualify for the YLP program. They say, okay, you can do the YLP program. You do this program, get your GED, do all this stuff. We'll classify you and let you go to whatever medium you want to go to. It's a pretty good deal. So I was like, cool. So I go out to the yard for my first day. I go out to the horseshoe pit, grab some horseshoes, just throwing some horseshoes, just getting my mind ready, because I know that it's about to be some serious shit cracking off. And this big old fucking white dude, fucking tats everywhere, your typical fucking white boy in prison comes up and is like, hey man, that's my horseshoe pit. I was like, oh, cool, all right. Go over to another one. Start doing it. Fucker comes up again, says, hey, that's my horseshoe pit too. I was like, all right. He's got a bunch of people around him. I'm like, fuck. So I go all the way across the yard to another section and get in a horseshoe pit. And I'm playing horseshoes, throwing the horseshoes, because I like throwing some horseshoes. That's always been something I've liked doing. Sure as shit, this fucknut comes walking up again. It's like, hey, I said, wait a minute. Let me guess. This is your horseshoe pit too? He's like, yeah, you're catching on. I was like, yeah. And mind you, I have a horseshoe pit in my hand. And I walk up to him. I'm like, look, man, I just want to play horseshoes, man. And why you not let me play horseshoes? And as I'm talking to him, I'm slowly walking up to him, but I'm doing it very slowly so he doesn't really catch on. My mind, one of my first books I ever read was The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And at a very young age, I read that book. And I have always made sure that I am very tactical on everything that I do. That's why I was as big and as good in the world that I was in, because I was that way and I was willing to do everything. So I'm, talking to him, jabber jawing him, because I got the gift of gab pretty good. Like, I mean, I could talk an old lady out of her dentures if I really wanted to. You know what I mean? Like, I really could. Like, somebody the other day was like, told me, he's like, you got these superhuman powers and you use them for evil. And I'm like, oh, fuck, thank you. But so I'm slowly walking up to him and I'm like, look, man, what's going on? And he's all like, oh, yeah, this is how it works. And right when he said, this is how it works, wham! I mean, haymaker, threw my body into it and just pilled him. I mean, it just pilled him. And he dropped. And I looked at all the other guys and they're like, they backed away. And then all the staff started coming running over and, threw me on the ground and did that whole hoopla. And I was just screaming. I was like, yeah, if anybody, because everybody was looking, I said, I am fucking Courtney Cory Grand Arbuckle. If anybody wants to step up to me, understand this. I'm not playing for keeps. And I'm screaming, yelling. I'm making sure that everybody fucking hears me. I said, I will not fucking hesitate to pull the trigger. So if anybody wants to mess with me or come at me, know that you're coming at somebody that is willing to do anything and everything to fucking defend himself. And the cops are like, they're not knowing what the fuck to do. And this fucking other dude's gurgling blood, spitting up teeth, It's just everybody's mobbing around looking like, what the fuck is going, I mean, it's just another day in prison.
This is your first day too, right?
So my well, it was my second day, yeah. So they took me into the hole, put me in the hole, found, asked him what happened, and I said, I hit the dude. It is what it is, I'm not gonna tell you why I hit the dude, fuck you guys. And so like, all right, well, we're gonna charge you. You're gonna get a fucking, assault charge and all that kind of shit, a major. They didn't take me downtown to charge me or anything like that. But they, gave me, the biggest major that they, could give me, and gave me a 6-month IMU program. So my first 6 months in prison, I spent in IMU. And that whole time, all I did was sleep, eat, and work out. Sleep, eat, and work out. And I had a diary. And I wish I had this diary this day, but somebody fucking jacked it from me. And basically what this diary was me writing down any and every scenario that I could possibly think of that could happen to me while I was locked up and how I was going to handle it. This was literally a fucking book of my war tactics.
Situations.
Dealing with any kind of situation. And I wish I had it still, because I can only imagine at that point in my life what the fuck I was writing. Like, I knew it had to be some crazy shit. So I do 6 months. And I didn't get out early, but because I fucking went off a couple times, and, it was always fun to, one of us, we'd cover our window.
Did you have a celly?
No, not an IMU, you don't. We had to think, because we were pissed off because they were cutting our yard and our meals up. So we all were like, all right, we know what we're going to do. So one of us cover our window. They would suit up, take all the time, suit up, put full gear on, come in and extract us. They extract us, and then we'd watch them get all undressed, and then the next guy'd cover his fucking window. And we did that shit for fucking 2 or 3 days straight. And so I ended up not being able to get out of there early, but I did all 6 months, and then they sent me to Walla Walla, And that's where the story really starts to turn. Now, he gets sent to the penitentiary at the age of 18. I barely was 18 years old. And I'm walking into the penitentiary off the chain, going through the fucking, the tunnel. Well, not really a tunnel, but, the concrete wall. And you can see the walls and all that. And they put us into the little receiving area. And I was like, fuck, this is where the fucking shit gets real. And 96, 97, the system in Washington was still, pretty decent, pretty hard. It was no joke. That's about, because now Washington, it's a fucking weak system. Sex offenders walk wherever they want. It's a horrible system. Washington State's not a threat at all now. Back then it was still.
Yeah.
And so people made some contact, with me and got me in with these cellies, with these guys. And one of them was a fucking Northern Warhammer skinhead, and I was like, fuck, well, whatever, it is what it is. This is the world I'm in, and I have to do what I have to do. And so we get in there, and this is one of the fucking craziest times in my life. So that trigger that went off, that created that no fear, didn't care, destroy the whole world, fuck them all up, turned back the other way. And I became scared. I became weak. I became not who I am and not what I was. And it ended really bad. It was a really bad assault that happened to me. And through that assault, though, afterwards, it kicked that thing back on, but it even worse. And, I did that whole time, that whole 10 years, because the things happened and they put me in certain places and whatnot. And, coming from the background that I come from and the people that I was running around with on the streets, it was really difficult because, it's not, when those kind of things happen in prison, it's not, people don't look at the people doing it as the pieces of shit, as weak, as cowards. They look at the people that were victimized. It's not so much like that nowadays, but
it's really messed. That's a really fucked up way to even look at it.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. And so these guys, because I kind of switched over, things were happening, and they weren't letting me go to chow. They're keep me, having me eat soups and stuff in the cell because they didn't want me to get away. Well, they all three got a fucking call out on that day, and they're like, hey, don't go anywhere. Make sure you stay here.
Oh, they had to leave the block.
Yeah, they had to. Yeah, all three of them. They were always trying to make sure there was one other person in there with me, and they had to leave. So they left, and I'm sitting at the desk, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what do I do? And there was this guy way down the tier, real big, real well-known dude, super Christian. And he was a tier porter, and he walked by, and he stopped, and he looked at me, and he's like, man, this is your chance.